In April 1983, a town in Utah had 4 days to live. On April 13th, families were eating dinner, kids were doing homework, trains were running on schedule. By April 17th, the entire town was underwater. This wasn't a dam failure, it wasn't a tsunami, it was a mountain that decided to move, sliding into the valley at up to 1 meter per hour, blocking the river, creating a lake where a town had stood for a century. This is Thistle, Utah. Population in 1982, hundreds. Population by May 1983, 0. The most expensive landslide disaster in American history. And if you think your town is safe from something like this, keep watching, because what happened in Thistle can happen anywhere. Comment right now if you've heard of this disaster before. Late 1840s, Mormon pioneers called the Pace family and other settlers arrived in a fertile valley in central Utah, Thistle Valley. The Spanish Fork River and its tributaries created a rich bottomland perfect for farming. The settlers planted oats and alfalfa, raised cattle, bred horses. By 1883, it was officially a town, Thistle, named after the wild thistles that grew throughout the valley. In the 1890s, everything changed. The Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad came through, and Thistle became a major junction. They built an engine house, coaling stations, a roundhouse with a turntable, shops, a hotel, trackside businesses. By 1917, more than 1,600 people lived in Thistle and the surrounding valley, a thriving combination of farming community and railroad hub. Families farmed the land their grandparents had homesteaded. Railroad workers serviced trains connecting Denver and Salt Lake City. Generations were raised here. Through the mid-1900s, like many railroad towns, Thistle shrank as transportation changed, but it endured, still farming, still serving trains, still home. Then came the winter of 1982-1983. The winter of 1982-1983 brought record-breaking precipitation to Utah. Snow piled deeper than anyone could remember. Then spring came, fast and warm. Rapid snowmelt saturated the slopes above Spanish Fork Canyon. Deep underground, ancient clay layers were turning to slippery mud. Early April 1983, motorists driving through Thistle noticed something strange. Cracks in the pavement. Railroad engineers saw something worse. Their tracks were distorting. Rails that had been straight were developing curves. Ties were heaving. The mountain above Thistle was sliding. And here's the terrifying part. It wasn't moving all at once. It was creeping, at times up to 1 meter per hour. Slow enough to watch, fast enough to be unstoppable. Drop a comment. Could you imagine watching the ground literally move beneath your town? What would you do? Within days, the moving earth had blocked the Spanish Fork River and a tributary. Water began pooling behind the natural dam. It rose about 4 meters, 13 feet per day. U.S. Highways 6 and 89 severed. The main rail line between Denver and Salt Lake City destroyed. April 17, 1983. Full evacuation orders were issued. Families had hours, maybe a day, to pack what they could and leave homes their families had owned for generations. What do you take when you have less than 24 hours to leave forever? Photos, documents, a few clothes. You can't take the house. You can't take the farm. You can't take a century of family history. Some residents refused to believe it. The water won't reach us. The slide will stop. They're overreacting. The water didn't care what they believed. By late April and into May 1983, Thistle Lake had submerged homes, rail yards, farms, barns, everything in the valley floor. The images were haunting. Houses with only roofs above water, furniture floating loose, drifting like rafts across the new lake, a town drowning in real time. The last train, the Rio Grande Zephyr, had already been canceled because the tracks were twisted beyond use. Damages exceeded $200 million in 1983 dollars, about $600 million today, the most expensive landslide disaster in U.S. history. Engineers eventually drained Thistle Lake, cutting tunnels and channels through the landslide to release the water, but Thistle was gone. Even after the water receded, what remained was mud, debris, and destroyed buildings. Nobody rebuilt. There was no point. The slide could move again. The valley floor was unstable. The rail line had been rerouted. The highways were rebuilt elsewhere. Thistle became a ghost town, instantly, completely. For decades, a few structures remained as haunting reminders, especially the iconic tilted house, partially sunken in the boggy field, photographed by thousands of travelers passing on the rerouted highway. The red schoolhouse, a lone house on a hill, foundations scattered across the valley, rails leading nowhere. Then, in 2018, a wildfire swept through the canyon and destroyed some of the last standing structures. Today, Thistle is an empty valley with a massive landslide scar towering above it. A few ruins remain, tilted, sunken, slowly dissolving back into the earth. It's become a case study for geologists, engineers, and disaster planners. The Utah Geological Survey uses it to teach about landslide risk and climate-linked extremes. But for the families who lived there, whose grandparents homesteaded the valley, who farmed that land for a century, Thistle is a wound that never healed. 4 days, that's all it took. 4 days from everything's fine to the town is underwater. Before you go, answer this. Does your town have landslide risk? Flood risk? What would you save if you had 1 day to evacuate? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And remember, Thistle wasn't built on a floodplain. It wasn't in a known landslide zone. For 100 years, that valley seemed perfectly safe. Thistle, Utah, the town that drowned in 4 days. Thistle proves that disaster doesn't always come with warning. Sometimes you have days, not years, to say goodbye to everything you've ever known. Thanks for watching. If this story of nature's power shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe. We cover abandoned places, natural disasters, and the towns that vanished overnight. Drop a comment. What other disaster ghost towns should we explore? And share this with someone who needs to understand how fast everything can change. Please check the other videos on screen. Until next time, and remember, 100 years of history can disappear in 4 days.